Hey there, this is Perch, and I want to talk about Walking Dead, specifically the Walking Dead TV show and the Walking Dead comic, because as you've heard from some other videos, I talk about why can't the comics and the movies have a little bit more synergy together? Why can't they align a little bit better together? Because when these movies are going out making billions of dollars or TV shows are going out making all these ratings, then when the comic seems completely different from the show, it's tougher to sell. It's tougher to kind of connect the boundaries. It's not for your problem is not with longtime comic fans and comic customers. That's not who your problem is. Your problem is with new fans, and new fans, new readers are important to keep the business growing. That's kind of the whole name of the game. So when a movie or a show gets popular, it brings new people into the shop. And if then you're having to explain, well, yeah, but I know the movie did this, but in reality, here's the comic book and it's completely different. And now I almost have to kind of resell you on something. That's friction. And as I've talked about in the past, friction hurts sales. So it's just not a good thing to have. Um, but Walking Dead comes up. Somebody pointed out, well, you say that they should tie more closely together, but Walking Dead, the comic book, enjoys a healthy audience, and Walking Dead, the TV show, ratings are going down. There's always these headlines, clickbait headlines about, oh, the Walking Dead ratings are plummeting. Well, I mean, yeah, sorta. They're down from its high. It still kills a lot of other shows. And if you're AMC, you're not like, oh my God, I gotta kill off this show that's doing better than all my other shows because it's not what it was 5 years ago. I mean, definitely people in the business and in Hollywood will look at these things, and it's not always fair how decisions get made based on ratings. And a show that's popular that falls can sometimes get the axe, but The Walking Dead is not in that danger. And the no show, there are bright showrunners and bright producers and bright networks out there who recognize the value of a property and understand there's a curve that exists always. You don't have incremental growth year after year. You have something that's popular, you have something that's less popular. But if the overall result is strong and you're still pumping out merchandise and licensing deals and getting your content on a streaming services, then life is fine. But the Walking Dead TV show is very different from the comic, and also not at the same time. I think one of the things that the show did very, very successfully, and it maybe it's the care the writers took, maybe it's the nature of kind of zombie horror on TV, who knows? They were able to create recognizable characters from the comic on the TV show. And then if you started with the TV show and you went to the comic, you could still recognize the spirit of the show there, even though characters like Daryl don't exist in the comic, and Andrea is completely different, an actual likable character in the comic, and was a very unlikable character in the TV show. So there's definitely a difference. The two are going in different directions, but it's very easy to explain to a new comic fan that, hey, this is The Walking Dead. It's you'll recognize a lot of the same themes, but yeah, the comic goes in some different directions from the TV show. But it's not like you pick it up and then tonally it just feels entirely different. That you're in a completely different space. That's not how the show was made. So, man, it is raining hard out there. I don't know if any of this, I'm using the little earbud in the car technique, and I don't know if this comes over. Sorry if it does. I hit the reduce background noise when I transfer these things into a video, but hopefully, you're not getting all this background noise, windshield wipers, and me drinking coffee, and horns honking, and people screaming at me outside the window. I don't know how much that comes through. Anyway, um, back to the topic at hand. I think that The Walking Dead actually represents a good model for how comics and shows, or comics and movies, should act, and in that spiritually, the comic and the show are very well aligned, very tightly coupled, and yet it can be its own thing. Another example of that might be the Kingsman series. The comic, The Secret Service, or The Kingsman, was very different from the movie in a lot of ways. But again, spiritually, it felt the same. The jokes, the style, the tone, the people, it felt like you were in the same world. And you put enough recognizable story beats in the comic and the show that it kind of crosses over, and you feel like you're in all in one world. And I think that's well done. That helps retailers. It helps sell comic books. It helps keep things consistent, and that's the process working out well. Is when you can have that kind of alignment. So anyway, that's kind of the answer. I think the other thing that The Walking Dead does well, that with the TV show, is that um, they are not afraid to go in new directions. They're not afraid to do new characters, but they keep a lot of the terminology the same. They keep the personalities mostly the same. As I mentioned, Andrea was different from here to there, but there's enough connectivity that Rick in the show reminds you of Rick in the comic, and you don't go completely haywire. You also didn't see the show get popular, and then suddenly they tried to insert Daryl or kind of haphazardly make it more like the show. They just went out and they let it be its thing, and they let the two universes live in parallel, and it works out. I think that what more could you ask for? So if you take that and you transfer it to DC or Marvel with their respective universes, I think you have a little bit of a tougher situation because there we're talking more about movies and not TV shows. So you don't have a lot of time to build up characterization. But still, I think you can have Captain America, the comic, reflect the Captain America you see in the movies, a kind of hopeful soldier who is finding his way. You look at actually the movies. One interesting thing about Captain America is obviously there was a journey through time where you had Steve Rogers, and then he's adapting to the new timeline and everything else. But in the movie, they didn't they didn't go all in. They kind of had Captain America still being a hopeful, optimistic guy that kept to the core of his character in the movie. They didn't go through a lot of kind of yucks about Captain America doesn't understand this modern phone technology stuff. What's weird is the way people learn technology. I've always found this fascinating. Is you have Captain America, who he came into, depending on in the '60s or with how time works in the Marvel universe, maybe the '90s. Who knows when Captain America actually was thawed out of ice and is living in modern times. But one thing is for sure, Captain America would have adopted mobile phones at the same time as everyone else. So, maybe if you say that with new Marvel time, Captain America was thought in the '90s, then maybe Captain America was lugging around one of those giant, '90s cell phones. But more likely, he wasn't, but very few people were. And so if you think about, mobile phones and small phones and then having a carrier plan and getting an iPhone and having apps and all that, Captain America would have learned that technology alongside everyone else. It's not like Captain America. You see, sometimes they do the jokes in the comics of Captain America's like, "Whoa, what's this camera feature here? Oh, this new technology. It makes me crazy." But how? He's standing next to Hawkeye, old boy version and young girl version Hawkeye, and they were introduced to the phone at the same time as Cap. Now, maybe they've grown up with a little bit more technology and computers, but again, if when you have old folks who are downloading and using apps and having no problem and chatting, and your mom's joining Facebook and all the rest, having Captain America be like, "I can't figure out this camera, beep beep boop," that's not that's it's just not realistic. Anyway, sorry, I got off on a big tangent there from The Walking Dead. I don't know what I'm going to do for little pictures when I put this in the video. Probably just Walking Dead because I'll have forgotten about this tangent. Anyway, there you go. Walking Dead, comic, TV show, live side by side. I think that's great. I think that that's a really good model they use together, and it's an example of it working, folks. That's two properties that are doing their own thing but still joined together, and comic stores are happy, and readers are happy, and people understand what's going on, and dogs and cats living together. Life is wonderful. Oh, wait, that's not a good thing. I don't know. Hey, subscribe, hit notify, bells and whistles and modern technology. Beep boop boop boop.